Hi there, thanks for joining us on Bernama Today. Tamina Kasi, Jesse Chahal taking you through. This is our exclusive interview segment, and today the spotlight is on SMA, or basically Spinal Muscular Atrophy. It is the awareness month for SMA, August 2019. Now, what is it? It's a disease that robs people of physical strength by affecting the motor nerve cells in the spinal cord, taking away the ability to walk, eat or breathe. And here in Malaysia as well, we have some stats on that.
Yes, we do. We actually do have plenty of Malaysians who are currently living with SMA, and now today we have in the hot seat with us Edmund Lim, who is an SMA father and also the founder of We Care Journey Association, to share with us his thoughts on this awareness month and also what can be done to increase not just the lifespan but also the life quality of those living with SMA. Edmund, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks, Amina. Thanks, Jessie.
It's good to have you in the studio today, of course. As mentioned, you're an SMA dad to Brandon. He just turned 9 as well.
Yes, he did.
And very initial in his life and through your journey, in which you call this a bittersweet journey, of course. You were told that there was no cure for him and that his lifespan would just be a couple of years. What has happened since?
Yeah, the early days were really challenging because you get the news and you're just trying to figure out what's happening. And there's still no cure today, so there's still no cure for SMA today. But those early years were challenging because there's so much that actually you can Google and find out that can be done, but yet locally it was a different sort of situation. It became almost a sort of hopeless, helpless situation. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what needed to be done and kept plodding along and working with the doctors who were very open-minded to try to step in the standards of care that were available from countries overseas. Whether it's through devices, whether it's through protocols and all the things that needed to be done, there was a lot, right? A lot that needed to be done. And I think that sort of made the difference, because when you have good enough standards of care to what you can achieve, that's when your child thrives, right? Despite the disease continuously sort of robbing him of his ability.
Because they're receiving that care in a timely and orderly fashion as well.
Right. Now, yourself and your wife Suki, you've been the prime movers of organizing awareness around SMA in the country, as well as galvanizing the parents groups of children who also suffer from SMA. How has that been going, and what's it also like to be a rare disease but one that is not really very recognized by and large in the mainstream?
It's frustrating. So I'll tell you, it is frustrating.
Please be honest. Yes.
It's frustrating because I think from a level of awareness, so let's talk about awareness first. There's a lot of people who don't want to know. There's a lot of people who don't want to help. So we've got corporates, we've got people from the public, and we're really blessed that there's so many people who have stepped forward, including very big recognized brands, understanding that something needs to be done. But when you think about awareness in terms of the people who can really make a difference in the country, right? Whether it's the health authorities, whether it's the ministries, right? Those people who have the resources and the connections to actually make a difference, we get a slightly different response from them.
Feedback.
And what is that response that you get?
So the response would be, and they use this word, I think in the right way, but also in a way which for me I find very difficult, which is priority. Right. So when you talk about priority, I can fully understand, right? This world is not unlimited in terms of budget, in terms of resources, but in the way that the priority tends to be used, tends to be this sort of curve, right? And we always push to the tail end. So when we push to the tail end, it's because either your numbers are not big, right? Because your needs are high, your needs are complex, and when you get sort of moved to the end, it's almost the whole community is actually excluded.
But
it's not because some do and some don't.
But the numbers are on the rise. More than 500,000 Malaysians carry this gene, and as the poster behind you, the We Care Journey poster behind you, 1 in 50 carry this defective SMA gene. And so, of course, part of the awareness campaign is to understand, for people to understand this and get themselves tested as well. Yeah,
I think prevention and this whole informed choice is something that for us, we drive a lot, right? It's not about saying that it has to be X or Y, because I think no one can really know what ultimately is an answer, because we all have choices within our own situation. But giving people informed choice, it's really important, right? Because if you know that there's a risk, or you could be in a group which has a risk, or you're going to have kids and you want to be sure that you're not going to be affected, your kids won't be affected by SMA, you can do something about it today.
That's right.
It's how do we get people to be empowered and have that informed choice, and they can decide on what they want to do.
So of course, when it comes to SMA itself, let's dig a little bit deeper. Now, across the disease spectrum is, of course, variously divided into about 3 to 5 types in accordance with the age of onset of symptoms or even with the highest attained milestones for development. Where does Brandon fall across in the spectrum?
He falls in between two. So there's the most severe type called type 1, there's then there's type 2, type 3.
Right.
So type 1 being the most severe, type 3, 4 being the least severe.
Right.
He's sort of 1 and 2. And the reason behind that is, at the end, medical science isn't absolutely perfect. You can't really draw an absolute line. So he exhibits symptoms and clinical profiles from a type 1. He also does from a type 2. Right.
Okay.
So he's a bit of a 1 and 2, right? So even now they've got type 1A, type 1B, type 1C. So the last was sort of type 1C.
Type 1C.
Yeah.
That was it. But he's in good spirits, and you know, he's a very cute kid as well. Do tell us a little bit about how he has tried to overcome this as well from a kid's perspective.
I would like to find out, because he's got this amazing ability to stay positive, right? To see the good side of things.
Yeah. There we have Brandon on screen, of course.
Yeah.
He definitely shares your smile, I must say.
and a budding artist as well.
Right. Yeah. And he's got this best day ever thing that he does. And I think for me that really sums up how he sort of sees things. He understands and he is hurt by a lot of things that don't work for him. Right, and he will ask, but he's got the best day ever, so he will look for things which are actually the best day ever, right? That attitude of gratitude comes to him naturally. We also try to inculcate him, but we're really blessed that he's like that, and Jaden's like that as well, and I think that gives him that resilience, right, to deal with the challenge that he has right, in his life.
In our budget 2019, 50 million ringgit has been allocated to help these kind of rare diseases. But what do you think has been done in the past year or so, and what are some of the gaps that you can call out and identify so that we can get closer to finding a better solution?
Just to clarify, so the 50 million was spread across a couple of things, right? So ended up
not only for rare diseases.
Yeah, not only for rare disease.
Understood.
So
Right,
we
okay,
believe that 10 million was for rare disease.
Okay.
So that 10 million was the same amount that was for rare disease. So the first qualification I'm going to make, or first clarification, is that when they use the term rare disease stands for 6,000 to 8,000 different rare diseases.
Right.
Everything from skin to digestive to mental to all these sort of things. So it's not like cancer. Right, rare disease is a very fragmented space. Within that rare disease fund, it's only for one group that right now is able to benefit. So my first question, and we went to Parliament, right, to ask. We wrote a letter first, a public letter, and then we also asked, was to say, is it inclusive? Because rare disease
How is this
has 6,000 to
equitable?
8,000.
That's right.
How is this fair? And within rare disease, not everybody has a treatment. Some are completely not diagnosed. So there's a whole progression. So within that was, out of sort of 2 sessions in Parliament, one was the Deputy Minister making clarification in open Parliament, another one was a special chamber session. We did ask, so we asked questions, right? And what happened was that 10 got increased to 16.
Right.
And the 2 questions were, is it inclusive? So they came back, yes, it is inclusive. And then the question that we have now is, when you've expanded it, what's happened to it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And why is SMA not still part of the conversation? So now, speaking about things which are happening abroad as well, now there are 3 drugs which are currently available on the 2 with the one other coming out, right? So these are Spinraza, Zolgensma and Risperidone. Now, what would it take to get these drugs also accessible for those in Malaysia suffering from SMA and living with it daily?
What it would take for those drugs to come in is, firstly, the pharmaceutical company would want to bring it in.
Okay.
And then our health authorities will need to review it and either approve or disapprove for it to come in.
MOH approved, right?
Yeah. But that's sort of getting access. But when you get access, it also needs funding, because someone needs to pay for the drug. So that should typically sort of go hand in hand, that there'll be funding for, and therefore that process of bringing a drug in. But it's really just a process, to be frank.
Okay.
Right? Because if you're thinking about these drugs, let's say for the first one, Spinraza, that's now in probably about 50 countries.
Right.
Now, I don't think we're going to pick up anything completely unusual that will say that, oh, that's not good. I think the reliance on the fact that there's a good track record of top health authorities around the world having a look at it, I don't see that as an issue. So I think the primary issue then sort of falls back on, so who's going to pay for it? Now, the health system that we have today in Malaysia is public versus private. It's public and private. For private, I've got no access, right? Because the way that regulations work, if I bought a policy for Brandon, they have a couple of years to even still deny it. So he's not covered.
Understood.
And I can't. I'm denied that right to cover for his costs, right, in that segment, which is the financial segment of Malaysia.
So you have no choice.
I've got no choice. We look at public health, right?
Absolutely.
So public health then becomes, what is going to be done, and that becomes that sort of murky ground in terms of who's supposed to work on it.
So currently,
Priority?
yeah. So
How
Yeah.
is it a priority? Who's in charge? And I like to say, whose stroke is
So
to
it's
choke
currently
to make it
become
happen.
pretty
Yeah.
entrenched. Now, what would you, as an SMA parent, like to see happen
Okay.
to allow for things to progress so that we're not still stuck here?
I think the most important thing is dialogue.
Okay.
Right, because no one person has the key. Ministry of Finance has the key to funding. Ministry of Health has the key to sort of clinical, drug, the health system. You've got women's and families also involved because the issues from health flow over, which they do today.
Into childcare,
So
naturally.
it is multi-stakeholder,
Okay.
right? And then you've got the pharmaceutical companies as well. You've got maybe some of the private sector getting involved, right? NGOs. So with these sort of multi-stakeholders, what's important is everyone's got a different talent and a different strength. But if you don't put it together, we can't overcome.
So we need
right?
to oil this machine better so that
We got to
everyone's
come together.
working
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
So getting together is the challenge, right? I've asked people, I guess, will see, well, if it's a parent or if it's a patient group, oh, maybe it's not your position to sort of get people together. But I think, why not? Right?
I would say you're in the best
Wh-
position.
Why not?
Yes.
Why can't people like us sort of get round the table and say, hey, what's our goal first? I think that's going to be quite important
Yeah.
because maybe that's also a challenge. What is the goal? Right? Is Malaysia inclusive? Right? Is the SMA community supposed to be part of it? Because treatment is going to be quite important, because if you don't provide treatment, the children die. It's as simple as that. There's no other way.
That's right.
Right. But are they being included? Or are they, in terms of like priority, one which is sorry you're not part of the future because of X, Y, Z, and they're not wrong reasons. There are reasons why. But I think that sort of first step is, are we really inclusive?
Yes, so it's about
we
also
are.
creating the lobby of not
And
only
creating-
SMA parents and families,
Yeah.
but the wider Malaysian public who are able to advocate, right?
Yes,
That's
correct.
right. But
yeah.
what about looking at it from this perspective, that the healthcare system is, unfortunately, at a later stage, only now maturing?
Yeah.
And because of this whole idea of inclusiveness, which has
Yeah.
really been spoken about of late as well,
Yeah.
and that we are trying to bridge those gaps as well. So it is obviously from 9 years ago till now, I'm sure you've seen some improvement.
Yeah.
It is encouraging nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it is encouraging. It's sort of moving the right direction. But like getting to dialogue, that for me is a big stumbling block, right? Because if you can't get stakeholders to dialogue, how are you ever going to move things ahead? So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that things are moving ahead. But within, at least for SMA, right, that dialogue doesn't happen yet.
That's right, because the fact remains that one baby is born every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
as in your latest op-ed in Malaysia, who has and carries the SMA gene.
That's right.
That is definitely not insignificant.
It's at least 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and the at least 2 weeks comes actually from a study that was done by a
Right.
doctor, and it's a report actually under the Ministry of Health. So at least within the data that they have, they've looked
Right.
at it and said, look, at least 1 in 2 weeks. Probably the right stats is 1 in a week, because we don't have any particular reasons why that our sort of prevalent or incident rates will be anything lower
Yeah.
than the global average. So it's actually 1 in a week. So it's about 1 in a week which is born. And June actually was quite, for us, a standout, because
Right.
that's one of the most recent ones. And we did C4, right?
Right.
Yeah, we did see 4 kids,
Yeah.
right? 4
Understood.
babies.
4 babies,
Not all
yeah.
made it, right? And we're only in August. And,
Yeah.
and that's the truth.
Well,
right? That's
Edwin, thank you also for coming on the show and not just raising the awareness, but opening up the space for dialogue with
That's
the general
right.
Malaysian
And
public.
that's what we want to do, especially if you're on social media. Use the hashtag ThinkSmall, SMALL. Think small,
That's right.
act big. And if you'd like to support, of course, you can log on to the website wecarejourney.org. Otherwise, if you would like, you can volunteer, learn more about SMA to start the dialogue going, as well as make a donation. More information available on the website wecarejourney.org. Thank you, Edmund. And
you,
here's,
Jessie. Thank
wishing you all the best. And of course, we are a platform. We welcome you back anytime to raise
Thank you
this
so much.
awareness and
Absolutely.
spread
We
more
hope to
awareness about
welcome
this,
you
yeah.
back the next time with an update on the situation. All the best to you, Brandon, as well as Suki. So on that note, we close today's Bernama Today, and we'll see you again next round.
Bye.
care and connection, action and awareness, ready and responsible, empowerment and education. We care and support families with SMA and other disabilities.
Did you know that 1 in 50 carry the defective SMA gene? SMA is the #1 genetic killer of small ones worldwide. This is why we need you to spread awareness on SMA, and we are grateful for all our partners and supporters. Thank you! Come join us and our friends, Joe and Babe, on our small mission. Think small, act big.